So, what if I told you the secret to learning anything isn't just about studying harder, that it's really about a simple three-part recipe? Well, today we are unlocking that exact recipe, and our guide, it comes from a place you probably wouldn't expect. All right, let's just jump right in. We've all had this experience, right? You've had teachers who are, total geniuses in their field, but you walk out of their class not having learned a single thing. And then you've had other teachers who maybe weren't Nobel laureates, but they made learning feel like this incredible adventure. So what is it? What's the secret sauce? Well, it turns out the answer isn't some kind of magic. It's actually a science. And you'd probably think that science comes from, I don't know, some high-tech lab in Silicon Valley or a fancy university. But nope, our guide for this is actually a super comprehensive training manual for expert instructors, and it comes from India's Directorate General of Training. So for today, we're going to treat this manual like our secret recipe book. Okay, so we've taken this entire expert manual and boiled it down to a simple 3-ingredient recipe. And here's the cool part. Once you understand these ingredients, you won't just see what makes a great teacher, you'll actually become a way more effective learner yourself. Seriously. So maybe grab a notebook because we are about to hand you the recipe to unlock your full potential. All right, let's get into our first and honestly most fundamental ingredient. It's all about understanding what is actually happening inside a learner's mind. I mean, it sounds so obvious, right? But think about it. How many of us have really taken a minute to figure out how our own brains work? Because you just can't teach a mind you don't understand. Yeah, so the key takeaway here is that great teaching isn't just about what you're teaching. It's about psychology. It all starts with the basic nuts and bolts of how our brains even form connections in the first place. So let's do a little time travel and look at a couple of classic experiments that really pull back the curtain on how our brains learn. First up, we've got Ivan Pavlov. You probably heard of him. He famously noticed that his dogs would start to salivate not just when they saw food, but at the sound of a bell that meant food was on the way. Their brains literally learned to connect two totally separate things, a sound and a physical reaction. Think about the little notification sound on your phone. You've been conditioned, you've been trained to connect that specific ping with getting a new message. That's literally Pavlov's dogs, right there in your pocket. But learning isn't just passive, right? It's not just things happening to us. Edward Thorndike showed us the other side of the coin. So he puts a cat in this puzzle box. At first, the cat is just scrambling around, trying everything, until it accidentally bumps a lever that opens the door. You can guess what happens next. After a few tries, the cat goes straight for the lever every single time. It's like, I remember learning to ride a bike. I fell. A lot. But every single scrape taught me something new about balance. That's Thorndike's cat, right there. Okay, so we've got it. The mind learns through connecting things and through doing things, association and action. So now for ingredient number 2, how do we actually use that knowledge to design a learning experience that really works? This is where we move from just winging it to becoming an architect of learning. I mean, think about your own life. How many books have you read? How many lectures have you sat through? And how much do you really remember? Just a handful of things, right? So why is that? What makes one lesson stick in your brain forever while another one just evaporates? How do we build an experience that creates real, lasting memory? Well, a big part of the answer is moving from the abstract to the concrete. And there's this great model called Dale's Cone of Experience that shows this perfectly. So way up at the top of the cone, you've got the most abstract stuff, like reading. Turns out we only remember about 10% of what we read. But as you move down the cone to things like watching a demo or jumping into a discussion, that retention number jumps up to like 30 or even 50%. And then all the way at the bottom, you've got the gold standard, direct hands-on experience. This is when you're actually doing the thing. And when you do that, your retention rate can shoot up to an incredible 90%. And that brings us perfectly to our third and final ingredient, the art of delivery. It's like this. You can have the world's best recipe and the freshest ingredients, but if you don't know how to cook, you're going to end up with a mess. Same thing here. You can have all the best psychological insights and a perfectly designed lesson plan, but if you can't deliver it well, it all falls apart. This is where the teacher has to become a coach. I had a piano teacher once who was just a virtuoso, an absolute genius. But she couldn't explain how she did what she did. It was just magic to her. I actually learned way more from a teacher I had later who wasn't as famous, but he was a fantastic coach. He showed me how to practice. He gave me feedback that actually helped me get better. That's what it's all about. Those practical skills that bridge the gap, like knowing how to demonstrate something and how to give good feedback. The demonstration method is a perfect example of this. Think about it. You could read a whole book on how to tie some complicated knot, or someone could just show you how to do it in 30 seconds. Which one do you think is going to work better? Yeah, for any practical skill, showing is always more powerful than telling. It takes that direct experience from the very bottom of Dale's cone and pulls it right into the classroom. And right after that demonstration, what do you need? You need feedback. But listen, not all feedback is created equal, not even close. Vague stuff like, nope, that's wrong, that just makes people scared to try. Good feedback, effective feedback, is specific. So instead of just saying you're holding it wrong, a great coach says, hey, try angling your wrist just a little bit more, like this. See the difference? It's not about pointing out what's wrong, it's about guiding the person toward what's right. It creates this safe space where it's okay to try, mess up, and try again. So, let's put it all together. What we've just unpacked is this incredibly powerful framework. But I don't want you to think of it as just a recipe for teaching. Think of it as the key to unlocking your own learning superpower. So, you ready to do that? Let's go over that recipe one last time. Okay, our secret recipe has just 3 parts. First, understand the mind. That's the psychology of how we actually learn. Second, design the experience. That's where we intentionally go from abstract ideas to concrete actions. And third, master the delivery. Those are the practical skills like showing and guiding. So just remember those 3 words: mind, design, delivery. That's it. That's the secret recipe. And here is why this is so important. It doesn't matter if you're training a new person at work, trying to teach your kid how to ride a bike, or just trying to teach yourself something new. These principles work for everything. I've used this stuff in my own life to pick up new skills, to become a better communicator. Honestly, it makes you more effective, more empathetic, and just a way more powerful learner for your entire life. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you have the recipe, what are you going to make with it? What new skill will you tackle? What idea are you going to share with someone else? The beautiful thing about learning is that it's a journey, it's not a destination. And now, you've got the map, so get out there and start exploring.